Hi and welcome. My name is Stella Stead. I am the owner and operator at Above and Beyond Early Childhood Consulting. I'll be taking you through this webinar today, so welcome. The first thing I want you to do is to take a deep breath and know that at any time here that you can stop the recording or you can come back and visit a slideshow anytime you want. You have this webinar now for your use, so it's up to you how you use it. So welcome to I'm a Trainee. What comes next? How to be the best possible trainee. So you guys have just started your traineeships or have been in your traineeships for a little while. And I hope that you're not feeling like this person down on the left-hand part of the screen. But I'm sure that sometimes you do, because it can be really overwhelming when you start something new. So I'm here to help you elaborate on things and make you more confident. That's what I want for you. So why this topic? Why did I decide to make a webinar on traineeships and how to be more confident? Because trainees are new to the role with no prior experience. So a lot of you are coming just out of school or out of another job into this role. And some educators assume that trainees know what to do. And we have to remember that you guys don't. This is something really new for you and you need as much support as you can. Need assistance in becoming competent in your new role. So that's what I'm hoping that you'll gain from here. The need for trainees to be confident when asking questions. A lot of trainees can be shy because they don't really know what they're doing. So I want you to become more confident so that you can go up and ask the questions that you need to instead of shying away. I want you to gain an understanding of the National Quality Framework. So the National Quality Framework is like an umbrella where the National Quality Framework is up the top and then all the sections down the bottom. So things like the Education and Care Services National Regulations, the Early Years Learning Framework, and the National Quality Standards. And I'll be speaking about that. And also I want you guys to gain a better understanding of your job descriptions and why they are an important document for you. So, ladies and gents, get your pen and paper ready because you're going to need it throughout the webinar. All right, I don't want you just to read this and be bored. I want you to really take down notes so that you can go back and research more if you need to, or take it to work the next day and ask a lot of questions. So the objective of this webinar is to gain new skills that can be transferred into your job role. So some of you have been there for a little while. Some of you are really fresh and really new. So well done. So the subjects I want to cover today are the philosophy, the code of ethics, the United Rights of the Child, job description, duties, values, speaking with children and families, the National Quality Standard and the Early Years Learning Framework, cultivating a positive culture and teamwork, working ethically, completing your study work, whether you're doing Certificate 3 or Diploma, and Regulation 168, so the policies you need to know. So if you have a look at the picture that I've put on this slide, it says authenticity is really important, and sometimes that's really hard to get. So the first thing I want you to remember is you need to be authentic in everything that you do. You've chosen this career, and I want you to be the best that you can be and enjoy it every single day. Working with children is definitely one of the best jobs that you can have, but you need to also know how to work within a team. It's not just about you, it's about all the people in your team, and I want you to become really confident in how to be an even better trainee. So let's start off with this diagram here. So this is a diagram of something that's called intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So the intrinsic diagram here is he's very happy, he's full of pride and interest and achievement and curiosity, and that's what I hope that you are feeling every time you go to work, okay? You're doing it because you're so passionate about being in early childhood. You're an advocate for children. You really want to make a difference. You're passionate, you're happy, you're excited to go to work. Please don't ever feel like it's an extrinsic motivation, so you're doing it just for the money, or you're doing it because if you don't do it, you're going to get into trouble. or you're only doing it to get praise. Okay, so make sure that it's really intrinsic. I know that it can feel really overwhelming when you start. When I started 22 years ago, I felt exactly the same. But things that I needed to do was show initiative. Okay, you need to show initiative. You need to be able to go in. You need to be accountable for your mistakes, but you just need to have a go. So the first thing that I really want to talk about in depth is the center philosophy. Now, the center philosophy guides your practice. So what I want you to write down in your notebook is, where is it located in the center? And did you receive a copy upon your induction? So an induction is where you get to meet the director or the team before you actually start work, and they go through lots of important things with you. That could be your contract. Okay, other bits of documentation like the code of conduct. Now, the code of conduct is how you need to be behaving at all times. And also, another important document here would be the philosophy. Now, the philosophy is probably 1 to 2 pages long, and a philosophy is actually something that guides your practice. You need to know what you're doing so that you can be authentic. So you need to actually read the content of the philosophy. And what I would do is I would actually highlight sentences or words that you don't understand, and I would bring it back to your nominated supervisor or your team leader, and I would ask them to go through it with you. Please don't just read it and sign it to say that you've understood it. It's really important that you understand how to turn the words on paper into practice. So you really need to understand what's being said. If it says that you're giving children uninterrupted time to play, what does that look like in practice? Make sure that if it gets to 10:30 and it's time for morning tea, that you're not saying, hurry up, pack away, it's time for morning tea. Because then you're not being authentic to your philosophy. So write down things that you understand or you don't understand of your philosophy, and then go and speak to somebody about it. So your mission is to find it and read it. I would love to hear that you have gained a better understanding because you've taken the time to actually sit down and read it. Philosophies can actually be reviewed every single year, and you'll actually need to be putting input into there. So make sure that you understand the content. Now, the Code of Ethics is probably another poster that you can see. So you can see the poster on this is the actual poster on the slide. So the Code of Ethics is a framework to guide our interactions. It's written by the Early Childhood Australia. The Code of Ethics is a set of statements and appropriate and expected behaviour of early childhood professionals. It reflects current pedagogical research and practice, providing a framework for reflection about the ethical responsibilities of early childhood professionals. Now, I'm going to be talking about ethics a little bit further into the webinar, but the ethical thing to do, ladies and gents, is the right thing to do. It's not what you think the right thing is, but it is what the right thing is to do in regards to the law. Now, when you look at the Code of Ethics, it says, in relation to children, I will, and then there's a set of statements. In relation to colleagues, I will. In relation to the profession, I will. In relation to families, I will. And in relation to community and society, I will. So I'm really hoping that you would have received a copy of this at your induction again. And if you haven't, just go and ask. Perhaps there's a pamphlet in the parent library for you to take, or in the staff room or office. But I really want you to get familiar with this. This is a very important document for you to understand. Now, there will be words on the document that you're probably not too familiar with. So again, I want you to take the time to read it and to actually jot things down. Now, everything I'm talking about in here is actually going to contribute to your studies, whether you're doing Certificate 3 or your diploma. It will actually be really good. It's like you're doing some homework for your assessments already. So well done. Now, if you want to read more, or if you want to download yourself a copy, you can do at Early Childhood Australia. So another thing that I want you to write down in your book is, where is this located? And is it easy to find at your centre? Maybe talk to your other team members about it. Do they actually understand the code of ethics? When was a good time? When was the last time they really sat down and read through it and what it meant to them? This is a really good document to bring out at staff meetings and have fantastic discussions about. So the next important bit of documentation for you guys is the United Rights of the Child. Now, there are lots of ways to display this, but this on your right-hand side that you can see here, the poster, is the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child in child-friendly language. Now, there's 54 articles here. The Convention on the Rights of the Child is the most rapidly and widely ratified international human rights treaty in history. The Convention changed the way children are viewed and treated. They're treated as human beings with a distinct set of rights instead of a passive objects of care and charity. Now, rights are things that every child should have and be able to do. All children have the same rights. And these rights are listed in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. Now, almost every country has agreed to these rights, and all the rights are connected to each other and all are equally important. Sometimes we have to think about the rights in terms of what is best for children in a situation and what is critical to life and protection from harm. As you grow, you have more responsibility to make choices and exercise your rights. So as an educator, okay, it's important that you understand these 54 articles. So the reason I've given you this diagram is to actually be able to sit down and have a look. Now, we actually teach you this in Certificate 3 and also in Diploma. So it's really important that you understand the content and why the UN Convention's Rights of the Child is important. So please have a look on the UNICEF website to get more information on that. It's listed here for you. I would also print off a copy and put it in your folder. If you have a folder, I would be printing off a copy of your philosophy to put in there, a copy of the Code of Ethics, and a copy of this. As we go through, you'll see that you'll be able to actually print off a lot of things, go to the websites and, you know, just use them, because you'll need them not only for your study, but also to understand it, because it's really important. You've made a commitment to be the best trainee that you can be. So I'm here to ensure that I give you as much information as possible so that you can. Now let's talk about job descriptions. They're really important, guys, okay? Now, a job description, or a JD, is a document that describes the general tasks or other related duties and responsibilities of a position. It may specify the functionary to whom the position reports, specifications such as the qualifications or skills needed by the person in the job, and a salary range. So I want you to stop and reflect. Did you receive a job description? Did you go through it and actually read it to understand what you actually need to do? Or did you just quickly glance over it, sign it, and give it back because you may have felt pressure to do so? Please go and get your job description and have a look. It will say exactly what you need to do as a trainee. I can guarantee you that supervision is paramount in any job description. It doesn't matter what position you hold. Supervision is really important. We need to know where the children are at all times. It's part of the regulations and part of National Quality Standard 2, Children's Health and Safety. Other things in your job description will be what you need to do during your shift. It's really important that you understand that so that you can be a team member. It also helps you if you feel that you are being pressured to do something you're not supposed to do. You can always refer to your job description. So please go and find your job description and make sure that you understand what the content is. There'll be lots of things for you to do during the day. As you are well aware now, there are lots of things to do, whether it be changing nappies, cleaning, making sure that we're engaged with the children. So it's important that you actually know what you're responsible for. One thing I want you to do is never assume that somebody else will do it. Always show that you have initiative. As a trainee, it's really important that we show that we have an initiative and that we take accountability for things. Don't just look at other team members if they're sitting down and think, well, somebody else will do it. That's not the way that you want to be trained as a trainee. You want to do the best job possible. You're new, so ask questions. Go back to the nominated supervisor. Go back to your team leader. Perhaps you have a meeting with them every week. Write down a few questions so that when you meet with them, you can say, look, I'm not quite sure about whether I'm supposed to be doing this at this time, or I'm asked to do this, and is it okay? Because remember, you need to know what the most important thing to do is, which is supervise and engage with the children. But then you'll need to know how to prioritize your day so that you can get all the duties done, so that when your shift finishes, you can say, I've completed everything and I can go home. Now, the consequences of not abiding by your job description, there is no right way to do a wrong thing. So when you're coming into a job, you really need to have an open mind and a good mindset, which we'll talk about further on. Now, if you don't do what's on your job description, these are the things that could happen. You could have a formal meeting where they may sit down and say, look, we've just noticed that you're not doing these things in the job description. You could have a mediation. You could have a formal warning. Now, I don't want to ever think that this may happen, but they could dismiss you if you have done something that's not legally correct. So please ensure that you are following your job description. So when do we need to be doing this? Monday, Thursday, every second Friday, assessment and rating? No, you know that we need to do this every day. Every day that we walk into work, we need to leave our problems at the door and we need to be professional. If somebody asks, remember, things as normal as good morning, how are you, is really important. When you leave the room, make sure that you are communicating with the fellow educators. I'm just going to the bathroom. I'm just going to the kitchen. That's really important to communicate to other staff members. Remember that you are a team, and if they don't know where you've gone, then an accident could happen because they're not watching the children if you are watching them. So please make sure that you are doing it every day. Don't become complacent. Don't be sitting down at the edge of the sandpit just playing with a spade. Don't pretend to turn your back on something that needs to be done because you are part of the team and you need to show that you can show initiative and that you are accountable for your duties. Okay, so let's have a look at what quality areas that compliance relates to. Now, there are 7 standards that I'll be speaking about. But for sure that you would have seen a poster like this around in your centre, maybe even in your rooms. So there are 7 quality areas. Quality area 1 is educational program and practice. That's where you do lots of observations and you're programming the activities that you have for your children, indoor and outdoor, and how you plan them. Quality area 2 is children's health and safety. That's things like nappy changes, how to give medication, how to ensure children are safe, what to do if a child is sick, how to fill out a form if a child has had an incident. Quality area 3 is the physical environment, so ensuring the buildings are safe, how to be environmentally responsible. Quality area 4 is staffing arrangements, and I talk a lot more about that. So quality area 4 is how you interact with each other, the continuity of staff, qualifications, and how staff can mentor each other. Quality area 5 is relationships with children. Now that should be something that you are doing every day of the week and that you are exceeding in. So when you're with the children, I want you to remember to always be down at their level wherever possible. When you're engaged in play with them, make sure that you are not overtaking their play, because you could be destroying a perfect learning opportunity. Just see if they want you. Sometimes they don't even want you to participate in play. You can just simply observe. Quality Area 6 is collaborative partnerships, relationships with families and communities. Now, relationships are really important. They are the number one thing that you establish as soon as you have started working. So I know that you would have definitely connected with some families better than others. You would have connected with certain educators. Make sure they're the right educators though. And Quality Area 7 is governance and leadership. So things like philosophy, which I'll talk about, policies that we also talk about, continuous improvement that you need to know, and you will be part of the quality improvement plan. So giving feedback and things. That's why it's really important that you understand the 7 quality areas. And you also do that in your study as well. So I want to talk about Quality Area 4 staffing arrangements. Now, within every quality area, there's standards and then there's elements. So here we've got organisation of educators, continuity of staff, professional collaborations, and professional standards. So these are the things that you guys need to understand. So if we look at the last one, which is professional standards guide practice, interactions, and relationships. It's important to understand the content of the Code of Ethics and the UN rights of the child. Staffing arrangements is really important about the way that you talk to each other, how you talk to each other rather. You must always remain professional. Remember, as adults, we don't always have to like each other, but one thing we must do is always respect each other. As an adult, you need to understand that this is part of your job description as well. So why is it important? Team cohesion means better team collaboration. And as we know, happy staff equals productive staff. So I want you to really close your eyes and think of your team and think of what kind of team you actually have right now. Do you think you have a good team? Do you think you have a great team? Or do you think you have a team that could definitely get better? So we'll talk about how to do that later on. Now, have you ever felt like this? Co-working, because working alone sucks. So this is why I wanted to make this webinar for you guys listening to this, so that you never feel like this, okay? I want you to know that there is always someone who can help you. There is always someone that you can go to. There is always someone who you can speak to, okay? You don't want to be doing all the work on your own. You want to ensure that you are part of the team. And if you feel that you are being treated unfairly, that I want to equip you with the skills to be able to go and speak to the appropriate people. So creating positive team culture. So 6 ways to build a positive team culture is to help everybody understand how they contribute. So this is why it's really important for you to understand what you need to do during the day. Perhaps you just work in one room. Perhaps you work in various rooms. How amazing is that? You get to build relationships with every educator and every child. Now, develop leadership skills. Now, you guys have just started, and it'll be an ongoing learning reflective thing that you do to practice your leadership skills. Now, every one of us are leaders, okay? Don't ever feel that you are not a leader. But the thing that you need to have as a leader is you need to have initiative. So as a trainee, you need to show initiative, and this will help you develop your leadership skills. Focus on development. Remember, you can't do everything in one day. As the old saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. So just focus on little things, week by week, month by month. Get everyone together. So perhaps you guys have things like team meetings or staff meetings. When you do have meetings like that, make a list of things that you want to include. So put your items on the agenda. Your thoughts are just as important as anybody else's, okay? You need to remember that we want to hear what you've got to say. We want to see you use your initiative. If you've seen something that's working great, let us know. If you've seen something that's working not so great and you think, you know what, I'd really like to change that, how can we do it? Make sure that you put it on the agenda. Number 5, make communication a priority. Please, I've worked with a lot of trainees. There are some trainees that are so scared to approach, and you don't want that to happen because that's when you feel really overwhelmed. I remember speaking with a trainee one day and she said to me, Stella, I never knew that it was going to be so hard. And when she said that, I sat her down and we had a conversation, and I said to her, what is it that you actually think is hard? And from that conversation, we were able to write a plan of things, and then she didn't feel so overwhelmed with what she had to do. I understand that it's something very new, and sometimes it can be overwhelming, so make sure you know how to communicate. If you are shy and you don't feel confident in approaching someone, perhaps you can write an email or you can write it in your communication diary. But make sure that you say something. Okay, communication is fundamental to lasting in early childhood. And reinforce the important ideas consistently. If you feel strongly for something, make sure that you can talk to somebody about it. So that's why I said not everybody can speak confidently, but by all means, please write it down somewhere so that you can be included and your ideas can be included. So Gillian Rodd has an amazing book called Leadership in Early Childhood, and she talks about the processes and stages of team development. And I want to go through them with you because I think that they will be very beneficial. First of all, to see where you fit in, and then to see how your team is going. So stage 1 is connecting, getting together as a team. Now, this is probably where you're at the moment. You've just come into a new team and, you know, the team's probably already established, the relationships are formed, but now you're coming in, you're probably feeling a little bit, oh, I don't know where I fit in. Oh, I don't know, do I go up and talk to these people? Yes, you do. These are now your team. Don't ever feel that you can't be included in these conversations, and ensuring that the conversations are actually, guided around what's important for children, not what happened in Home and Away last night. You can have those conversations away from the children in the staff room by all means, but when you're engaged with the children, always ensure that the conversation remains around their needs. So, educators should be encouraged to set personal goals for professional learning and development, self-evaluation and career progression. So I just want to stop you there now. You're probably going to want to pause the webinar, and I really want you to write down some goals, okay, for what you want to learn in the next, not 12 months, but probably 6 months. So is there something in particular that you want to learn? Maybe what I've spoken about so far. Maybe you really want to understand the content of the philosophy better. Maybe you want to sit down and really dissect the Code of Ethics and the United Nations rights of the child. Maybe a goal is to actually see how you can converse with the children about the rights within the rights of the child. So you can really sit down. Maybe you want to ensure that you get all your assignments out on time, so you've got enough time to get to the next one. Stage 2, confronting conflict in the team. So if the leader does not possess the confidence and skills to deal with conflict, the same scenario will probably be repeated when the new team moves into the second stage of confronting conflict. All that means, guys, is that if you ever see that there's conflict within the team, or if you ever feel that you are being treated unfairly, I need you to go and talk to your leader, okay? If your team leader is not listening, then go and speak to your nominated supervisor. There is a policy called the grievance policy, and what you'll do is you'll follow that. Now, stage 3 is when you're starting to cooperate as a team. So that's when the beginning of a team spirit is evident, with educators spontaneously referring to themselves and their colleagues as a team. Have you guys started to do that? Have you started to look around and feel like part of your team? Or do you still feel like you're an observer? Team members are more open-minded. Are you open-minded? They're more willing to listen and support one another. Is that what your team's like? Do you listen and support each other? And are able to focus on the needs of the team rather than their own needs. So this is what I was saying before, that you are definitely part of a team. You don't work just as yourself. Now, what you want to do is you want to get to stage 4. So this is where the stars are. This is when you collaborate as an effective team. Okay? So when you get to this stage, that you really find that the group of individuals who committed themselves to working together in the first stage can be said to be operating truly as an effective team. Now, all team members are making a unique but equal and valued contribution to the work and share with the leader collective responsibility for the efficient operation of the service. How amazing is that? So this is where you want to be. Collaborate as an effective team. Now, if you've just started within a team, that's okay. It's going to take you a little while to get to here. But how quickly you get to here will be also the way that you present yourself as a professional, the way that you communicate with people, the way that you engage with educators and children, the way that you show initiative, and the way that you take responsibility for what you have to do. Now, stage 5 is closure. This just means if somebody leaves, and people do, as we know, okay, they go on to different jobs or they finish and they find a different career. Stage 5, so your leader, being the nominated supervisor or the team leader, must acknowledge that the team has now lost a team member, and to make sure that you guys are okay, and to transition you back to stage 1 when you get a new team member. So that's really looking after your emotional needs in preparation for establishing a new team once again. So you're just at the beginning of your cycle in the team, and I can tell you, being in early childhood for 22 years, I've seen these stages go around and around like a cycle. They're like a clock. So there'll be times when, you've got to work really hard at the beginning to bond, to gel, and then when you're working effectively, it's wonderful. And then you will feel a little bit upset when somebody leaves, especially if you're very close to them and you have a great relationship with them. And then when somebody new will come along, you'll be a little bit wary at first, and that's okay. That's just human nature. But then again, you'll go through that stage, you'll go through the cycles, and you'll build a great team again. So don't ever become discouraged. Now let's talk about something that can happen very frequently: gossip. So I've chosen this image because I feel that it is just so powerful. You know, when somebody whispers in your ear and tells you something. So what I want you to remember is, next time that does happen to you, is this: when gossip falls on wise ears, it dies. I'll just repeat that. When gossip falls on wise ears, it dies. Why is this statement important for effective teamwork? So really think about that. Now, have you ever been in a position where you've heard gossip? Probably yes. I know I have. Now, there are two things we can do when we are put in this situation. Is we can actually ignite it and we can go with it, or we can stop it right there in its tracks and say, I don't care what you're saying. I'm here to do my work, and I will not engage in gossip. Now, gossip can be very destructive to teams, and I spoke to you about the importance of working as a collaborative team. And if you are gossiping, I can guarantee you that you will not be working as a collaborative team. So ensure that if you hear gossip, you don't become part of it. If it's something that's making you feel really uncomfortable, I really want you to go and speak to somebody about it. Your team leader, your nominated supervisor, or somebody else. Please don't keep it to yourself. make sure that if you ever hear gossip, you stop it in its tracks, or else you'll be ruining the stages of the teamwork that you've worked so hard to get to. It just takes one person to say something that's not kind. When we think about it, that means then we're not working ethically. And when we're not working ethically, we can put ourselves in danger. So please ensure that you are doing the right thing all the time. Now, I suppose that when you think of mindset, you're thinking, Stella, why are you talking about this? Well, because our mindset is our perceptions or our beliefs about our abilities and qualities, such as our intelligence, our creativity, or musicality. Now, there are two mindsets that we can talk about. The first one is a fixed mindset. So I want you to really reflect if you have a fixed mindset. Now, in a fixed mindset, the aim is to achieve validation. The person constantly tries to prove themselves and is highly sensitive to being wrong or making a mistake. So failure brings them doubt, demeans their character, and destroys their confidence. And as a result, a person with a fixed mindset always feels anxious and is vulnerable to setbacks or criticisms. So is that you at the moment? Do you think that you have a fixed mindset? If somebody's telling you how you can do better in a professional manner, are you becoming all defensive? Or do you just, take it on board and say, thank you very much for your feedback. I'll make sure that I do it differently next time. So please don't have a fixed mindset. What you want to have is a growth mindset, okay? A growth mindset. Now, a growth mindset is about achieving mastery and competence. The person believes that superb personal qualities can be learned, developed, or cultivated. Now, look, if you fail, you just look at that as feedback about performance and not as judgment of personality, potential, or value. So therefore, please aim to have a growth mindset, ladies and gents. It's fantastic because people with growth mindsets are eager to learn and boost performance and enjoy exploring, experimenting, and stretching themselves. Now, that's exactly where you should be. You know, at the start of your career, you should want to explore, experiment. I remember making so many mistakes at the start of my career, and I still do, and that's fine. But what it means is that I get to reflect and know how to do it differently next time. So please, if you want to have a look at more on growth mindset, follow the link here. Okay, now let's talk about ethics in the workplace. Now, work ethic is a belief that hard work and diligence have a moral benefit and an inherent ability, virtue, or value to strengthen character and individual abilities. It is a set of values centered on importance of work and manifested by determination or desire to work hard. So ethics is about doing the right thing, all right? They talk about values and we talk about that. So working ethically means doing the right thing. Now, if you ever find yourself in a position where you think you've tried everything with a person to work something out and you feel that it's still not working, what I want you to do is I want you to have a look at your grievance policy. So in your journal that you've got, please write down where your grievance policy is and take the time to read it and understand the content. So the procedure outlined in this policy aims to achieve consistent treatment in the handling of personal grievances in the workplace and provide a procedure to follow in the event of a personal grievance. Now, a grievance is any type of problem, concern, or complaint related to an employee's work or the work environment. So if you're trying to solve a problem and you can't get to an agreed decision and it starts to become really nasty and narky, and you've tried to talk to the person, you've tried to talk to your team leader, then please get out the grievance policy and have a look. If people are being nasty and you've tried to talk to them, remember to document everything. It's important that you keep a documentation or a journal of happenings. Make sure you understand how to use this policy. It is there for you. Okay, now let's have a look at policies and procedures. So policies and procedures direct, inform, and guide employers, employees, and service users, including families. They protect you as well as the children and the families. So you, as a trainee or as an educator, therefore have a responsibility not only regarding your employment and job description, but you also have a responsibility in regards to your duty of care to ensure that you are familiar with and following the policies and procedures of your service. You should be actively seeking to find out information from your policies and procedures if there are aspects of them that you are unsure of. This is your individual responsibility. If something goes wrong, but you have followed the policy or the procedure correctly, you have covered yourself. But if you don't know or have not followed a policy or a procedure and something goes wrong, then that will be your fault. Policies and procedures are not something to be scared of. They are there to assist you in your role as educators. Now, just stop for a minute and think of where your policies are located. Is there a policy folder in your centre? Were you given some policies when you started? Were you given policies such as the grievance policy? Were you given a policy about uniforms? I'm going to tell you more about policies now, but I really want you to just jot down where your policy folder is, number one. But not only that, do you understand the actual policies that are in the folder? So now let's have a look at Regulation 168. So Regulation 168 in the Education and Care Services National Regulations is basically the minimum amount of policies that you need to have. So every centre in New South Wales, every centre following the Education and Care Services regulations needs to abide by Regulation 168, which is the minimum amount of policies. Now, if we take just one regulation, we can see how it encompasses several of the national quality areas. And from just that one regulation, you can see that there's approximately 20 policies and procedures. Now, you need to understand it's not a choice that we have these policies and procedures. It is the law. So, as such, educators are expected to uphold the guidelines as defined in the service policies and procedures in order to fulfill the requirements of this regulation. Now, I don't want you to start panicking and thinking, oh my goodness, I need to go and find those policies. I need to understand those 20 policies. You don't need to understand the content of every single one today. What I want you to do is actually find where they're located and start looking through them. Okay? Just start looking through them one at a time. So this is the actual, what you're looking at is you're looking at Regulation 168. And you're looking at all the policies we need to have in place. And what I've done on the left-hand side is I've highlighted which quality areas they relate to. So you can see that quality area 2, children's health and safety, have lots and lots. So you're going to need to understand things like nutrition, food and beverages, sun protection, water safety, sleep and rest, administration of first aid, incident, injury, trauma and illness procedures, dealing with infectious disease, dealing with medical conditions, emergency and evacuations, delivery of children to and collection from the Education and Care Services. So that's things like making sure that you just don't give the children to anybody. They must always bring identification with them, and the parent should be telling you if somebody different is picking them up. Of course not if there's an emergency with the parent. Excursions, providing a child-safe environment, so staffing, including code of conduct. Now we go on to quality area 4 staffing arrangements. determining the responsible person, and the participation of volunteers and students. Interactions with children, including the matters set out in Regulations 155. Enrolment and orientation. And then we go on to things that are in Quality Area 7, leadership and governance. So you can see here that these policies are very important. It's the law, we have them, and it's important that you know where they are located. So make yourself a little list of finding where they are so that you can better yourself and understanding what you need to do. The more knowledge you have, the more power you have. Not in a bad way, but it really means that you're taking the initiative to learn the things that are really important in your career. Remember, you've chosen this career. If it's something that you want to continue to do, these are really important things that you need to understand. Everything that I've mentioned thus far in the webinar really helps you when you are doing your units, whether it's for Certificate 3 or whether it's for the diploma. Now, every single working day, you need to ensure that these things are happening all the time. All right? Now, I want to talk about your core values in life. Now, values are things that pertain our existence. We build our relationships, especially our adulthood, encompassing these values. So some values are honesty, integrity, reliability, compassion, and forgiveness. Just take a moment and write down what you think your top 3 core values in life are. What you want to do, ladies and gents, is make sure that you are always working within your values. Don't ever feel that somebody else has the right to take that value away from you. Always ensure that you are always honest. If you start lying for somebody or something, you should really sit down and think, am I being authentic to my values? If you say your value is reliability, but you're always having sick days, are you being authentic? If you say you are compassionate, but you are the first to laugh at somebody or make fun of somebody or gossip with someone, are you really compassionate? Now, values are really important in any part of our existence, especially in early childhood. So always ensure that you are always aligning with your values. If you follow my page, Above and Beyond Early Childhood Consulting on Facebook, I've actually written an article on values. You might want to read that later on. Now, when we think about things like speaking with children and families, I want you to remember one thing. These people are paying for a service. We are professional in what we do. Never ever think that you have the right to speak down to anybody that walks in the centre. Always remember to be professional. So some things that I want you to practice are always use active listening skills. Never assume you know better. Never answer a question without knowing all the answers. I'm sorry, I've made a spelling mistake there. Never answer a question without knowing all the answers. And always ask a senior staff member to be present if you're having a difficult conversation. Have all your information ready and do not lie. What do you think will happen if you lie? Okay, you're probably going to make a problem out of something that wasn't. As a trainee, perhaps you don't have enough knowledge to be able to talk to the parents one-on-one at the moment, especially if they're asking you something in regards to the children's development. So what I suggest you do is, instead of thinking you can answer the question, just say something like, at the moment, I'm new and I'm currently studying and learning about children's development, So I'd like to get so-and-so to come and assist you with this. The family will love you for being so honest and for guiding them in the right direction. Now, active listening, if you don't already know what that means, it means that you allow the person to actually finish what they're saying, and then you can repeat something that they've said to show that you understand. Now, remember that we're not always going to agree with what families say, right? Because we've got our own thoughts and, process beliefs and our beliefs. What you need to remember is to always follow policy and procedure and to do the ethical thing. So the right thing, not what you think is right, but always look at the policies, procedures, and the regulations. Okay, now the National Quality Standard, I spoke about this a little bit before. So the National Quality Standard sets a high national benchmark for early childhood education and care and outside school hours services in Australia. So the National Quality Standard includes 7 quality areas that are important outcomes for children. And if you haven't already been there, services are assessed and rated by the regulatory authority against the national quality standards. So that's called assessment and rating. Maybe you've heard that. And then they're given a rating for each of the 7 quality areas and an overall rating based on these results. So where my mouse is here, you've probably seen something like this hanging up on the walls in the centre. And as I said before, these are the national quality standards. If you want to know, and probably one of the best websites to have as you study and continue to learn is this one here, the ASEQA website, which is the Australian Children's Education and Care Quality Authority. They have so much information on every quality area here. They have newsletters for every quality area. They have the national registers, which means that you can go in and you can type any centre in Australia and it will show you their overall rating. It has lots of important information. You need to use the ASEQA website to lodge forms if there is a serious incident. Now, I'm not saying that you would do that, but it's important that you understand. If a serious incident happens at your centre, you need to notify ASEQA. These are all things that you learn about, but I find it very valuable to be able to tell you as well. Now, I want to talk about the Early Years Learning Framework. So there are 2 nationally approved learning frameworks which outline practices that support and promote children's early learning. The first one, if you're working with children aged 0 to 6, you would have seen this book, Belonging, Being and Becoming, the Early Years Learning Framework. Now, it's the approved learning framework under the National Quality Framework for Young Children. It is part of Quality Area 1 Educational Program and Practice. Okay, you use that to get a lot of information that you need for your programming. Now, if you work with older children, which is before and after school care, or OOSH as they say, they use the framework called My Time, Our Place, and it's for school-aged children. Now, Early Years Learning Framework looks like this, Being, Belonging and Becoming. That's what we usually see on the cover. So I really want you to sit down and to think about where you've seen this in your centre and whether it's written all over and highlighted, because that's exactly what mine looks like. You can download this, there's no problem, and have your own copy. Now, see, it says Belonging, Being, Becoming. Now, it's made up of practices here, principles, and the 5 learning outcomes. Now, what a lot of people do is they usually just use the 5 learning outcomes here and really forget the importance of the principles and the practices. Because as you can see here, it's all about the children's learning. So the children learn not only because of our understanding of the learning outcomes, but also because we understand the principles and the practices that are within the Early Years Learning Framework. Now, this is really important as you continue your study and you learn how to do observations and understand children's development So I would suggest that you download a copy and have it on your desktop so that you can refer to it as you need. Okay, guys, now completing your work, as you know, that you don't want to be feeling like this person at the top. So whether you're doing your certificate 3 or whether you're doing your diploma, I want you to ensure that you are doing this. Set enough time aside. Ensure that you understand what is required of you. If not, email your trainer or ask somebody at the centre. Please don't leave it to the last minute. A lot of the assessments really require you to understand and to have read your work so that you are able to answer the questions competently. Ask for help, but don't think educators will complete the work for you. And most importantly, enjoy it. The topics are important for your career. You have chosen an amazing career. So take this opportunity with all this amazing learning and just envelop it. I'm 22 years into my journey and I'm still learning and I absolutely love it. I will read anything I can to help me understand how to be better at work. So who to contact? This is just a list of things. It's really good to have a list of all these things here. So general inquiries, a CEQA, which I told you about. So all these are important that you know. Fair Work Ombudsman, Fair Work Commission, information and privacy information, anti-discrimination. These are actually really good for some of your assessments that are coming up. So please make sure that you keep this webinar in a safe place. That comes to the end of the webinar. And there are the references for you. I want to thank you for listening to me and really taking notes during this webinar. So what I'd like to leave you with is to ensure that you are always able to communicate your needs. I really hope that you've understood the importance of documents such as your centre philosophy, the Code of Ethics, knowing the United Nations rights of the child, understanding that policies and procedures are really important, that it's the law, it's not just something that we want to do. Knowing where to get your information from the policies. Understanding that teamwork goes through processes and stages and that you need to be mindful where you are. So always have that growth mindset. If somebody comes to you and gives you feedback, just take it on. Don't become upset. It's definitely not worth it. They just want you to be better. We have national quality standards. So remember those 7 quality areas that we need to abide by. And as you get further into your study, as you get further into understanding the day-to-day operations of the centre, you'll see that those are things that we need to abide by all the time. Get yourself a copy of the Early Years Learning Framework by downloading it and having it on your laptop or your desktop, sorry. Or if you're like me and you still love things on paper, just print it off so that you can highlight it, because everybody has a different learning style. So everybody will like to see it differently. Now that you have this webinar, you can just listen to it time and time again. That's the wonderful thing about having these webinars. And you can go back through it. I really hope that you have found the webinar useful. And please, you can follow me on my Facebook page at Above and Beyond Early Childhood Consulting. If you have any questions, please email me at info@stellasted.com.au. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.